Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name's Chris Broome and I'm your host. Today I am delighted to welcome to our show Tim Maccabee, who is Managing Director of Ducati UK. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hello, nice to be here.
Tim, today's a special day because this is our 50th interview for the Inside Silverstone podcast. So thank you very much for coming on, and Ducati being the sort of headline name for our 50th episode. Hopefully it'll be a corker. As we always do at the beginning of each of the interviews, we'd love to just share with our wonderful listeners a quick career snapshot, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I've got this all off LinkedIn. And I think you're going to need to help sort of expand on this a little bit. So we've got from sort of 89 through to sort of early 2001, various.
Well, 89 was in fact when I joined Ford Motor Company.
Okay.
On the graduate program, which is a bit of a misnomer because actually I'm not a graduate. Don't go telling too many people.
Okay.
And
so how
that
did you
was,
get on that? Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so we'll go back a couple of steps. Didn't do particularly well in my A-levels first time around, and was looking for something to do other than sit around the house being upset about having not done all that well at my A-levels.
Sure.
And got a job in a factory, a Mother's Pride factory, making bread, which was essentially production line. After a year at that, working days and nights, 12-hour shifts, realised that most people over 40 there were not in the best of health or condition, in fact, living that sort of life. And decided I really ought to go and do something to recover the situation, let's say. Quite an academic family, father a lecturer, mother a teacher, eldest sister a teacher, next one IT, brother got a first from maths, in maths from Oxford, so quite academic. Went back to do my A-levels again, got my A-levels, went on to a management trainee course at a timber merchant's. Stayed there for about a year, and then on the strength of that went to the civil service, which was a employment department, job centre, and then a regional office. That was a semi-graduate level. Applied to Ford Motor Company on a graduate programme on the strength of having been graduate level at the civil service, which was graduate or A-levels, having just scraped through my A-levels for a second time to get onto that. So there we were, Ford Motor Company in 1989, and that was sales and marketing. And the automotive industry around the UK is peppered with people who've been at Ford Motor Company and been through their graduate program. The breadth of training you get, breadth of different roles you get at Ford Motor Company kind of sets you up in automotive land to a lot of people around.
Good.
Went through that sort of program. So 1989 to 2001, Ford Motor Company, I'm losing count of roles. It's at least 7 different jobs I had in that period. Different. So
same area in the UK or dotted around the UK, so you got to experience different sort of towns and cities, or?
First position was based in Manchester. Second position in Essex. Third in Yorkshire, and then back to Essex, and one global position and various things. But so basically Essex, Yorkshire, Manchester.
Okay, and that was all junior 20s, presumably.
20s and 30s. I joined Ducati in 2001 when I would have been 36.
Okay, and so then you joined Ducati UK as national sales manager.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that like? You know, Ducati, big name, big brand.
It's quite a different brand and company to the company it is now. I mean, I think it's always been a very, very enthusiasts brand. It's always been a brand, I'll try not to say it too often, about Italian passion and involvement and red and all of these things. So coming from Ford Motor Company, which people would think is volume and relatively
generic, and
I mean, perhaps people would think relatively dull compared to Ducati. If anyone listening considering a career with Ford Motor Company, wholeheartedly recommend it. Great company to work for. Surprisingly, quite a lot of transferable skills in terms of the job here, as I said in a budget meeting a couple of weeks ago, is 90% about dealing with the dealer network. And in sales and marketing at Ford Motor Company, a lot of what I was doing was dealing with the dealer network in one role or another. And in those respects, dealer network is out there selling product to customers, getting stock in, marketing it correctly, selling it to customers, servicing it, looking after the customers after the event. Those things are similar. The big difference, I guess, is the level of passion between someone buying a Ford Escort, Focus, or whatever the product at the time is, Ford Fiesta, and someone buying a Panigale V4. You know, the level of interest, generally speaking, is much greater. So, yeah, some transferable skills, some differences.
And so, national sales manager for 4 years, and then in 2005 became managing director. Ducati UK. So what was that like? So that's a good step up, or were you already sort of actively managing and directing anyway? What was that like as a transition?
The situation had developed such that the guy who hired me as when he was managing director had gone back to Italy, back to work in the factory, and we'd had a period when we didn't actually have an active managing director in the UK. Right. We had one guy who was appointed, came to one meeting, stuck his head around the door of a dealer meeting, said hello, and we never saw him again, which was quite a funny circumstance, because in the meantime he'd been hired by Yamaha Italy.
Right.
So that was a little strange. We had another guy who came and became MD for a few months. I can't remember exactly, but a few months, and then Ducati decided he would be better employed working as the MD of Ducati North America. Okay. And it sounds like they were scraping the barrel and ended up turning to a man who was already in the country.
Well, no.
You can work it whichever way. So I was offered the position in 2005 and became MD.
Well, I think the opposite. I think the reality is you've got clearly an impressive background within both cars as well as motorbikes, and clearly knew the brand, been here, based here, live here, family here. Logical decision as opposed to potentially recruiting from outside. So
well, in reality, had been doing a lot of the functions of the MD in the times when we didn't have anyone here doing it. But it was a change to become managing director, and I remember a conversation with my boss at the time, who shortly afterwards said, and this is a good piece of career advice for anyone listening, if you can't be it, act it. And act it until you become it. And that really struck a chord. And another boss many years before at Ford Motor Company said the important thing is sometimes to look the part. And he was talking about football as an analogy. If you look at most footballers, they look like footballers. Some don't and have to make up for it with skill. Paul Gascoigne probably being the
great example,
epitome of that that particular phenomenon. But so a couple of bits of advice. So becoming MD, potentially for a little while, playing the role until becoming the role, and then hopefully filling the shoes reasonably well.
Well, 2019. So here we are. So quite clearly. And so for those that they hear Ducati, they know the name, motorbikes, racing. What does Ducati UK actually do? So what's their function as a business?
Okay.
Both in dealer networks, but also racing and or otherwise. So what does Ducati UK actually do?
Okay, we are a wholly owned subsidiary of Ducati Motor Holding.
Okay.
So our reporting line is directly into Italy. Ducati is owned by the Volkswagen Group through the route of Audi. And so Ducati Motor Holding in Italy report into Audi as part of the Volkswagen Group. We don't have massive amount of involvement with the VW Group within the UK. As I say, our reporting goes into the line of our head office in Bologna in Italy. Very nice place to go if you get the chance. And we are responsible for the distribution of product and aftercare, after sales of product in the UK. So we have 30 dealers scattered around the UK, Ireland. We also look after Sweden and Norway.
Okay.
Have an office, a sub-office out in Stockholm.
Okay.
And we get the sales plan together with the dealers. We agree targets for the next year. We set the policies, the terms and conditions for the dealers. We recruit dealers. Occasionally we fall out with dealers. And then we have to find new ones, as I say. So that is the simplest thing. And I think if you stripped back everything else, that would be the bit we'd still have to do, is to look after the distribution channel to the dealers. Following on from that, marketing, advertising, which we also help the dealers with. So we have a dealer marketing function within the team. And press, dealing with the press in the UK. And then, as you said, dealing with some aspects of racing in the UK, the British Superbikes Championship. We have currently 2 teams competing, or in 2019 we had 2 teams competing.
So they were Weiser and Oxford Ducati, is that right?
Yeah, Oxford Ducati is actually run by Moto Rapido, a dealer down in Winchester.
Okay.
I mention that because there is also a Ducati Oxford dealership, which doesn't have anything to do with the team.
Okay.
The team is sponsored by Oxford Products, which are a supplier of motorcycling goodies and cycling goodies and stuff. So anyway, yes, Moto Rapido and Paul Bird Motorsport, 2 teams. We won, in fact, we got 1, 2, 3 in the championship in 2019.
So 22 wins out of 27 races was what I read.
Yeah, I was looking at this because there's always the potential that people are saying, well, it's not fair, you know, that bike, it's the bike that's doing it. And I was looking at it because when you watch the racing, you might have had a Yamaha coming third or a Honda coming second or winning a race or a BMW somewhere, you know. We didn't win absolutely everything. There were other manufacturer bikes there or thereabouts in most of the races, when if things had been a bit different, maybe they might have won. The reality was, if you looked at the statistics of the season and those number of wins and podiums, and it does look fairly dominant. But I have to say, I think we got 2 of the best teams in the paddock.
Sure.
3 of the best riders in the paddock.
100%, yeah.
Probably the best bike in the paddock. But it didn't go that way in World Superbike, using the same bike, you know. And so for once, or for a change, not for once, for a change, when we were running a twin-cylinder engine, that was a 1200cc engine against 1000cc 4s. We're obviously now running a 1000cc 4, so arguably, some people would argue, we had an advantage when we were running a 1200 twin versus the 1000cc 4s, but now we've come to a similar platform. We've actually done better with the new bike, but there's a generational thing on product. You know, our bike was brand new out the box, and where we were probably at the end of the development cycle of the twin, we're just at the beginning with the 4.
It's all cyclical, isn't it, with racing? The reality is you guys have clearly been dominant and more consistent, is a good word to use, throughout the season, clearly, as per the data. But there'll come a time where obviously other manufacturers catch up, as they will do in F1, for example. So
the interesting thing about British Superbikes is that the organisers, MSVR, and the race director and director of the whole series, a chap called Stuart Higgs, they will change some of the regulations as they do in World Superbikes with weights or whatever it is, to try to even the field a bit. And they've got a very good record of having different manufacturers in that top 6 showdown format that they have in British Superbikes. So it's unusual for it to generate a 1, 2, 3 championship position from the same manufacturer. But it went down to the last race, so the racing was certainly still exciting in terms of who was going to win the championship.
And there's new teams coming through, so we know some of the guys at OMG Racing, and so they're bright, colourful bikes, and so they had a pretty good sort of now in year 2 or year 3, and they won at Silverstone for the first time. So so it's still competitive. There's teams are coming through, even those that are smaller and younger.
Yeah, I'd have to say, being honest with you, that I think there was some underperformance elsewhere in the paddock as well. While we were consistent and feeding off the 3 riders, I think feeding off each other, I think there was some underperformance elsewhere in the paddock. Some really good performances, and I would say notably from the FS3 Kawasaki ridden by Danny Buchan. He was the closest challenger, but I think there was some expectation. If you looked at the beginning of last season of people who were going to be in the top 6, there were some names in there like Forres who didn't come through in the end, and perhaps other people who didn't perform as they wanted to, while Scott Redding outperformed a lot of expectations.
And presumably, you used the great word earlier, enthusiasts. So presumably those that are following, Moto GP, British Superbikes, that presumably sort of transitions down into the dealers where they are then going out potentially to buy a Ducati. And so what does that look like in relation to 30 dealerships? Ducati's quite a, I'd say, niche. I like the word niche. It's a specialist product, specialist bike, brand. What does that look like across the 30 dealerships? Are there 30 dealerships that are sort of sole manufacturers, so they're just selling Ducatis, or are there ones where they have sort of other bikes that they're also selling? And just so our listeners understand sort of the dynamics of sort of Ducati UK and how it all pans out.
The 30 dealers we have, approximately half of them single franchise and approximately half of them are multi-franchise of one description or another.
Okay.
Average number of bike sales per dealer is around 100.
Okay, per annum.
Yeah, just a few more maybe.
Okay.
And we sell usually about 25% of our bikes are sports bikes.
Okay, yeah.
That's a change from when I joined the company. It was a significantly higher percentage, up sometimes to up to 50% were sports bikes.
Oh, really?
Sports bike market back then, 35,000 a year. Now more like 6,000-7,000.
Why the change, do you think?
There's partly the age of motorcyclists. Motorcyclists' average age has got older over that period of time, and bad backs come into play. And
trying to be a bit more sensible.
Yeah, I think also, as you've seen in cars, the variety of different designs of cars. You got SUVs and you got sport SUVs and you got coupe SUVs and you got all this massive variety of product. And the same's happened in motorcycles, where back in the 1970s and before, everything was a flat seat and a flat tank and a pair of handlebars, and it was pretty straightforward and simple. And then you've had a real proliferation, and things like our Multistrada adventure sports bike are really, really competent bikes, great fun to ride, very versatile, and people have moved over a period of time towards those. I think the other thing, back again to when I joined the company, our flagship sports bike, if I'm correct, was 116 horsepower, which, by the way, is plenty. And now our flagship sports bike out of the crate is, I think it's 206, nearly double.
Yeah.
The roads have got more congested. The penalties for speeding have got more severe. And I think there's been a transition of customers saying, well, I'm not going to ride a big sports bike because it's just too much.
Yeah.
I mean, even I've had conversations with racers, people like Carl Fogarty, world champion, saying, I'm not particularly interested in riding the big sports bike on this particular track event because they're too much. I'd prefer the smaller one. And when a world champion is saying it, by the way, there's a chance it wasn't Carl Fogarty. If it wasn't Carl Fogarty, it was another world champion. Because I'm sure I had the similar conversation with Neil Hodgson, who is also an ex-world champion. But the point remains,
somebody.
It was, that's one of the perks of my job. The big sports bikes are just moderately crazy. Our service manager says to me, if you go out on the V4, you're going to scare yourself. And I said, no, I won't, because I won't open the throttle that far. Mm-hmm. So there is the ability to not overdo it. The same as you see people driving, cars that can go ridiculous speeds. They're not necessarily going ridiculous speeds when they're driving it, because they know the consequences.
What's your favourite bike out of the current range?
I've got a Multistrada 950, which is actually the smaller engine Multistrada. Really like it. Sometimes think about the game of, what bike would we take home if we were fired tomorrow and part of the severance package was taking a bike. It probably would be a Multistrada, just because they are so tremendously capable. We could, of course, plump for taking the most expensive bike there is, but...
No, go for one that you prefer and practical and good fun. What about e-bikes? So, got a beautiful website, and you scroll down and sort of promoting various e-bikes, including a limited edition MIG RR. You've got the e-Scrambler. So great. Presumably they're retailed in the distribution.
They're a licensed product, so some of the dealers take those, and they're made by a company in Italy called TOCH. Licensed product, sold through some of our dealers and also direct to consumers if they want to go onto the website and have a look.
Presumably, certainly over the coming years they're going to get more popular, I guess, and hopefully the evolution of electric motorbikes coming in, but whether Ducati would be involved in that question.
Yeah, there's another licensed product that we've got slightly less to do with, which is a licensed e-scooter. I think the e-mountain bike and Scrambler product that you just mentioned are a slightly separate product, to be honest. The e-motorbike, e-scooters, I'm sure will come in terms of sporting motorcycles, and that's what we're about, is sporting motorcycles.
Yeah.
The electric motor does have some advantages in that, in terms of performance, but it has disadvantages in terms of weight.
Yes.
One of our core values is trying to be lightweight and good handling, good for use on circuit and such like. So at the moment, we're not pioneering that particular aspect. I think it's going to become hugely important in terms of urban mobility. And we will probably see a change of people coming in to the two-wheel world on an electric product, and may then decide they enjoy it enough that they want to try a more sporting motorcycle. And I don't know by the time that happens whether or not we'll be having an electric sporting motorcycle or not. I'm sure at some point we will. But I think it'll bring people to two wheels, and two wheels for sure has a lot of advantages when it comes to urban mobility.
Certainly in cities.
Just there are some statistics about if you put 10% of road traffic onto two wheels in urban environments, the congestion improvement would be huge. Just because they take up that much less space.
Good. Other things Ducati sort of do and get involved in, so I grabbed this obviously off the website and also some of the forums. So we've got Ducati World Premiere 2020. So what's that? What happens at that show?
So each year we go from one model year to the next. There's a show in Milan called EICMA, and we hold a world premiere just before that. In fact, now has become our habit, at which our CEO does a live feed introduction of the new product for the year.
Nice.
Big auditorium. We actually had the dealers out there just before for the global dealer meeting, and then we go on to introduce all of the product to the journalists and say live feed to customers and fans and dealers and people watching around the world.
Sounds good. And then in July in Italy, there's also Ducati. It's a World Ducati week. So is that literally just as it sounds on the tin, as it were? So it's literally just a week of
teeny bit of a misnomer,
okay,
because it's 3 or 4 days. It's 4.
Okay, nearly.
But it used to be weekend, and then it grew a bit to 4 days, and we changed the name to week. By the time you got there and come back home again, it's definitely a week, so that's okay. Yeah. That's based at Misano Circuit in Italy, near to Rimini and Cattolica and those places. And it's 20,000-30,000 people hanging out at a circuit paddock in Italy.
Nice.
Predominantly Ducatis there. I don't know, 95%.
Yeah. Just all hanging out, talking about bikes, showing each other their bikes, and
there'll be entertainment going on the track. A big part of it's the social side, as you say, down in the towns on the Adriatic coast there. There are Ducatis just going up and down all day, and the bars get full at night, and people just having a good time. Ride up to the circuit the following day, see what's going on, see the stands, meet the riders, look at the bikes, look at each other's bikes. I mean, a big thing about motorcycling in general, Ducati in particular, along with a couple of other brands, is the adaptations people make to the bikes. You know, you don't usually buy a Ducati and leave it completely standard from the point of ownership to the end of ownership. So you go out there and people have done all sorts of interesting things to their bikes and painted them different colours and put different accessories on them. And
I can
all
bet
that sort of stuff. And take their old ones along or whatever.
And presumably some of the UK teams you guys go out have been out to that.
It's compulsory.
Aha.
Sort of. It's certainly compulsory for some of us to be out there. We have to put on a bit of a welcome area for the UK people who are visiting. And last time I went, I only actually was there for about 36 hours and decided it was too brief. So this time I'll be going a little bit longer.
Why not? One of the perks. Also seen that the Abu Dhabi police have just acquired 8 Ducatis to their range, so they're obviously infamous and famous for having Lamborghinis and Bentleys and Ferraris as their sort of police cars, but apparently they've now added some Ducati bikes, which is impressive. Not sure if you've seen that.
I hadn't, but I've seen. I think the Lamborghini they had before, which also, by the way, is part of the group. So they've got you'll be able to correct my pronunciation. So it's the is it Panigales?
Yeah, Panigale V4Rs.
That's funny.
So they're fast, presumably.
Yeah, that's the one that the British Superbike is based on.
Okay. So rockets.
So yeah, they're 212 horsepower, somewhere around there. Okay. 210 horsepower.
Okay. There must be some very fast criminals or very fast camels over in.
Yeah, they're in a hurry for sure. They're in a hurry if they're running around on those.
So let's move on. So thank you. That's great, and I'm no doubt at all really insightful for our listeners and also students listening to this. So talking about students, so we met because you came in to sort of do a speech or headline a speech alongside Geyer Innovation at the Silverstone Technology Cluster, which was where there was a presentation about what was going to become and now is a sort of collaborative project with local tech colleges and schools. Talk to us just about that and why you were and are still involved in working with local colleges and schools and students.
Okay. So Gaia Innovation, as you correctly mentioned, was founded by a lady called Julia Muir. She's an ex-Ford Motor Company colleague of mine, talking to people coming through Ford Motor Company. And we met at a dinner, or re-met at a dinner, how are things going, etc., etc. Started talking about what she was doing with Gaia Innovation, and I was talking about what I was doing and continue to do with Speakers for Schools, a program where schools that would not normally have a profile speaker go in and perhaps talk to the students, get a figure to go in through the Speakers for Schools program and make presentations to the students. So I do that, still do that, but through talking to Julia and then talking to Ros Bird of MEPC here, realised that there was an introduction worth having in terms of what the Silverstone Technology Cluster was trying to do in establishing a community, and the work that Gaia Innovation do in facilitating that, basically. And so it reaching out to local schools, putting them in contact with the businesses here, getting people from the businesses here to go and talk at the schools and attend careers events and give advice. I think it's fantastic kind of project that I don't recall being around when I was at school.
No, they didn't exist. Certainly, no, not for you, not for I, definitely not.
And I there definitely was a careers advisor at my school, and I definitely remember sitting and having a conversation with them. But I think when I walked out of that careers advice session, I wasn't any the wiser to what I thought I was going to do.
Sure.
And I think students, youngsters today, there's so much more information. Perhaps it can even become
too much.
Yeah. To filter out what the path is. So if you can get some help talking to people and understanding a little bit, and I actually the theme of the speech I do under Speakers for Schools, and sometimes have done for a couple of the schools around here, is about understanding yourself and understanding what you enjoy. And I think you mentioned we might talk about advice you give to your younger self. And I think it's trying to understand what you enjoy and trying to get a career heading in a direction that matches that. And when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, became interested in motorcycles. Before that, going down the motorway in my dad's car, leaning out the back window, or gazing out of the back window, looking at all the different cars and the different stuff on the road, and took an interest in that, started buying the magazines. And for some reason, I never really connected that to a career.
Yeah, well, why would you if no one's telling you that it could be?
So I ended up, as I said earlier, going into a timber merchants, for heaven's sakes, because I don't think anyone would, as an example, have gone and worked in a car showroom. I probably would have really enjoyed it, being a car salesman. But I think there was almost a bit of a stigma of that as a career. But I would say to people, try to find something that you enjoy, and become involved in it. Get in and around the businesses that you think have something to do with something you'd like, and hopefully that'll take you somewhere forward.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. Yeah, the Gaia projects with the STC is now over a year old. I think they've partnered up with 5 schools, 6 schools, Kingsthorpe, UTC here, Spon School. I went and spoke at Spon School a couple of weeks ago on entrepreneurialism and stuff like that. And Buckingham Schools tomorrow, so there's an event tomorrow, so you guys are there as well, plus a bunch of others doing speed networking and what have you. So yeah, I think it's fantastic, and sort of onwards and upwards. And the fact that someone like Ducati is part of that, and you have helped lead the charge on that, I think is awesome. We're obviously recording this for once actually not at the Innovation Centre, which is where I normally interview, but we're doing it at Ducati UK HQ, and I've been shown around. It's very impressive, and there's some phenomenally beautiful bikes downstairs, and I might steal one as I sort of walk out. You might see me wheel off with one. We're based at Silverstone, and I look out the window and I can see Silverstone circuit. What's it like working at Silverstone? What's it like being part of, next to, the number one race circuit in the UK and the sort of business community here? What's it like? And for businesses listening to this who aren't here but maybe considering coming here, why should they consider coming here and sitting alongside the likes of Ducati and Delta Motorsport, to name just 2?
I think firstly, doing the job I do at Ducati, which a lot of people say that must be a dream job. It's like a holiday every day. Sometimes it's suspiciously like a job, targets and all of that stuff. So you have your good days and you have your days that are just, they are difficult conference calls, as I had just before you walked into the office. And Silverstone, people are shocked that I can see the track. I have to look through the back of some of the stands, but I can see the track. And sometimes I don't even look until at least lunchtime to think what is that making the noise on track. You do get used to it. We've been here for 7-8 years now, so you do get used to some of it. Having said that, the environment is quite motivational for some people. We certainly see that our dealers are happier to come and visit us here than they were when we were based in an anonymous office block in Milton Keynes.
I'm sure.
There's a vibe about the place. In terms of businesses, I mean, if you've got something to do with motorsport, if you've got something to do with the automotive industry, particularly the racing enthusiastic end of it, there are all sorts of businesses around that are doing similar things and involved in similar things. And I think that has benefits, even if we're right at the commercial end of it.
Yes.
I would imagine in terms of the engineering companies around here, they may get benefits of business and networking that we don't necessarily find doing the function we do. But there's an energy about the place, and I would say that in actual fact, MEPC, as far as we're concerned, pretty good landlord. Silverstone circuit, pretty good people to be next to. So
it's all ticking all the boxes.
Yeah.
No, and I can certainly vouch for all the other sort of engineering and manufacturing companies here, not just in motorsport, but those have obviously then spun off into technology and other areas. Yeah, from a sort of meeting others and networking, as you've said, and sort of commercially benefiting from each other. No doubt that's happening. And MEPC have definitely helped with that, and the Innovation Centre, and now the Silverstone Technology Cluster, which is a couple of years old, without any doubt, has helped sort of bring that together. So great. How long have we got? How long have we been? 36 minutes.
Okay.
Gas bag in 36 minutes. So I think we should sort of start looking to close this off. So first of all, Tim, thank you again for coming on the show. Episode 50 is a landmark. Just recording 50 interviews, which I started back in September last year. It's been a whirlwind. 50 is fantastic, and the fact that you are it and Ducati are it is great. Before we get on to the last two questions, is there anything that I haven't asked you that whilst we've been talking, thoughts have been firing off, and you think actually I'd like to mention that or talk about it whilst we've got you on the air?
Not that I can think of. Was there something that I should have remembered?
No. Just in case there's anything that's sort of been firing off, you think, I want to mention that. So it's fine, because we have covered off quite a lot. Embarrassing mistakes. I mentioned this to you earlier. So we like to sort of humanise everybody that's on the show and sort of have a laugh if we can. And so a couple of episodes before this, we had a wonderful solicitor explaining that he fell asleep on a conference call whilst on a skiing trip, snoring down the phone. That's pretty embarrassing. Anything of similar ilk in your sort of locker, career-wise or personally, that we could share with our wonderful listeners?
Probably years and years ago, I would like to point out very quickly, before I worked for this company, in the early days of hands-free phones on cars, I was talking to one colleague about another colleague in not too glowing terms. And after a minute of me sounding off, the colleague that I knew I was talking to pointed out that the guy that I was sounding off about was also in the car sat next to him. And at that point, you kind of can't recover the situation.
No.
Because there wasn't much ambiguity about
what you said,
what I was saying and my viewpoint, and you kind of just have to
take that on the chin,
hold your hand up and say, sorry about that.
is what it is. That's a fantastic story. But that must happen every day, whether it be on the phone or in an office or wherever around the country and around the world.
Had one very similar the other day, which is a life lesson. It wasn't me, fortunately, this time, but someone hit reply all, not realising who exactly was in the CC list, and likewise said, "Oh, ignore that person; they're just being annoying," kind of thing, and then realised that they were in the CC list. So had to backpedal.
Less speed, more haste. I think. Pause, reflect before you say or send.
Yeah, read an email before you send it.
Yes,
always.
Yes,
and just double check who you've addressed it to.
Valuable lesson. That moves on to the last question, which I think we've sort of covered off, and you also mentioned one sort of 5-10 minutes ago, which was we also like to share life lessons, and also really your number one life lesson. So for an 18-year-old version of Tim at the beginning of his journey, redoing A-levels and then starting off your career, which would then end up becoming managing director of Ducati UK, boom.
Yeah.
What one bit of advice would you have given yourself?
Go and find something that you enjoy, and in a way, don't worry too much about it being exactly the right thing to start. And I suppose balance out the fact that you can, if you're doing a job that's a job because you have to do a job to work and earn money, then in the other bit of your life, in the leisure bit of your life, get involved in something you like, get involved in doing something you like, because actually you might find a way that you can switch the two and make the thing you enjoy become part of your life, and be that getting involved with motorcycles, aeroplanes, animals, pets, boats, whatever it be. Try to find something you do, because as I say to kids when I stand up in front of them, and they're between 11 and 18 usually, firstly, if I'd have had a child when I started this job, I would now be able to take that child for a drink. So that's quite a while. I've been doing this one job over a period of our life. We spend a lot of time working.
Yes.
So we might as well try and find something that we enjoy doing.
Here. Can't add anything else to that. Fantastic bit of advice. Fantastic interview, Tim. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Clearly, for our wonderful listeners, everybody listening, I'll put some links to Ducati and otherwise in the show notes, so you can obviously have a look at their new range of bikes for 2020, and some other links to some of the racing teams, just for those that are sort of interested and passionate about these things. Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.